everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to bring you guys this video today. So I have done this format of video one time before where I talked about the horror genre. I will link that video up in the cards above. Basically, I talked about some of my favorite horror novels, and then I also talked about horror novels that I hope to read ASAP. So I thought that I would continue to do that format with new genres that I'm just now getting into. So this one is going to specifically be about adult paranormal romance. Although I do have a couple of YA paranormal romance series to talk about. But first, I thought I would give a definition of what paranormal romance is, just to make sure that we are all on the same page here. This is actually more for my benefit than it is for yours. But it says paranormal romance is a subgenre of the romance novel related to paranormal fiction. Paranormal romance focuses on romance and includes elements beyond the range of scientific explanation, blending together themes from the genres of urban fantasy, traditional fantasy, science fiction, or horror. Also, most of the time there are elements of suspense and action throughout as well. Also, there's this fantastic video that Under the Covers book blog made, I want to say maybe a few years ago at this point, where she talked about the definition of paranormal romance as well as urban fantasy and giving different recommendations for different kinds of paranormal romances. So I will definitely link that video. I learned a lot from that video. So if you're also curious about this subgenre, definitely check out that video. So first, I thought I would talk about my personal favorite paranormal romance series. Most of the time, these books tend to be a part of a series. And then I'll get into my TBR and all of that. So first up, I want to talk about one author in particular who is my paranormal romance queen at this point, and that is Rochelle Mead. So first of all, when talking about Rochelle Mead, we have to talk about her two YA series. The first one is Vampire Academy. This is a very popular YA series that I feel like pretty much all of you know about at this point. And then there is also the spin-off Bloodlines. This essentially blends together elements of vampires and an elite boarding school. Definitely gives me vibes of Gossip Girl in that regard. So to keep things short and sweet with this world, we have three different kinds of vampiric creatures. So we have Moroi vampires, which are like the good vampires, the normal kind of vampires. A lot of them tend to be elite and rich. We also have Dhampirs, which are half Moroi and half human beings, and a lot of them end up becoming bodyguards for the Moroi to protect them from the third kind of vampiric creature, which is the Strigoi, which are these bloodthirsty monsters. They are pretty much mindless. Their only goal is to kill. And so this series centers around Rose, who is a Dhampir, and Alyssa, who is a Moroi, and they go to this elite vampire academy. Rose is there to learn how to become a really great bodyguard for the Moroi, and Alyssa goes to develop her magical abilities. This is a fantastic YA paranormal series. I feel like this is one of those series that has actually aged really well. I mean, there are a couple of like kind of problematic-ish things going on, but for the most part, this is just a very solid series. I read this for the first time a couple of years ago, cannot recommend it enough. And then the spin-off, which is Bloodlines. This one centers around Sydney, who is an alchemist in this world. Alchemists are humans, and their job is to keep the vampire world a secret from humans. And Sydney is a character who is introduced towards the end of the Vampire Academy series, so that is how this series is a spin-off from Vampire Academy. Cannot recommend these enough if you're looking for YA paranormal romance series, because the romances in both of these books are absolutely incredible. Absolutely. So then in terms of her adult paranormal romance series, I think she has written a couple of more series, but I have not read them yet. But the one series that I have read from hers that is definitely adult is Succubus Blues. So this is also known as the Georgina Kincaid series. So this centers around Georgina. She is a succubus. And so we see that at this point in Georgina's life, this takes place in modern day Seattle. She's kind of over being a succubus. I mean, she's been having to do this for a very long time. And there is this author named Seth who is a mortal man. He is Georgina's absolute favorite author. And so I think he moves to Seattle, if I'm not mistaken, and starts writing his books at the bookstore that she works at. And so this beautiful, angsty, forbidden romance forms between the two of them. Like, ugh, the romance, and this is so freaking good, guys. This is also a series of 6 books. All of Rochelle Mead's series have 6 books each in them, so there's plenty of content to take in if you are a fan of Rochelle Mead like I am. I am currently on book 5 of this series, but I have given every single book in this series 5 stars. I also feel like this book and this series has a very unique and sarcastic and dry sense of humor to it, like just a very unique vibe. Next up, I want to talk about Ilona Andrews, specifically their Hidden Legacy series. They've written a couple of other series, which I'm going to get to in a minute when talking about my TBR, but I have read the first 2 books in this Hidden Legacy series. So let me just kind of quickly show you all of the books that are in this series so far. We have Burn For Me, which is book 1. Then White Hot is book 2. We have Wildfire, book 3. And then we have Sapphire Flames, book 4, and Emerald Blaze, which is book 5. So this is an interesting series for a couple of different reasons. I'm just gonna hold book 1, which is Burn For Me. So this is more of an urban fantasy series than it is a paranormal romance series. And like I said, if you wanna know the difference between those two things, definitely check out that video that I mentioned by Under the Covers book blog, because she explains it a lot better than I ever could. But this is a series that's essentially split up into 2 different trilogies, because we have this first trilogy that centers around our main character Nevada, and then the second trilogy, which starts with Sapphire Flames, centers around Nevada's younger sister Catalina, essentially. So this takes place in a world where in the late 1800s there was this serum invented called the Osiris serum, and when injected into humans it made them have various different magical abilities. And so now we're in present day Houston, Texas. So now we're seeing the aftermath of these magical abilities existing, because now we have these very powerful magical families that exist. There are also these beings known as primes, which are the most powerful mages in this society. So we have our main character Nevada in this first trilogy. She is a private detective, and her magical ability is that she can tell truth from lies, which is very useful in her line of work for sure. Then we have our other main character, Connor Mad Rogan. He is a very powerful prime. Basically, both her and Connor end up taking on the same bad guy, and so it ends up being a romance between the 2 of them. I will say in this first book, Burn For Me, there's like a dash of romance thrown in. It's much more about them tracking down the bad guy and the magic system and all of that going on in this world. But then in the second book, which is White Hot, we get a lot more of the romance, and it's just absolutely everything. What's really cool is that Ilona Andrews is actually a husband and wife writing duo. The 2 of them just write so well together. I'm just absolutely obsessed. So then another paranormal romance series that I want to bring up is the Black Dagger Brotherhood by J.R. Ward. So I have read the first 3 books in this series. The one that I'm going to put over here is my personal favorite that I've read so far, which is Lover Awakened, which is the 3rd book. But this is a very, very, very long series. I don't think I'm gonna actually read all of the books in this series. However, I do plan on reading at least the first like 6 or so. I've heard that after book 10, this series kind of goes downhill in terms of quality. Black Dagger Brotherhood is a group of male vampires. They are like the cream of the crop in terms of their bloodline. They are the strongest of their race, and so they are tasked with protecting the rest of the vampires. In this world, vampires do not feed off of humans because it actually weakens them to do so. They actually need to feed off of another vampire. And so basically the main threat in this series are these beings known as lessers. These were humans that have been made immortal through really weird like rituals essentially, and basically they're just trying to take down the vampires. Yeah, like I said, this is a really interesting and unique world in my opinion, and I have really enjoyed the first 3 books that I have read in this series so far, so I'm definitely looking forward to continuing on. Another paranormal romance that I quickly want to mention is Mating the Huntress by Talia Hibbert. This is a paranormal romance novella that is a werewolf romance, and what's so exciting about this is that Talia Hibbert is planning to write an entire series of paranormal romance novellas, because I tweeted at her right after I read this novella and I was just like, this book was so amazing, like please tell me you're planning on writing more. But she tweeted at me and assured me that she is planning on writing more novellas in this series. So I don't know the timeline of when those novellas are coming out. This one is about our main character. Oh, I can't remember their names anymore at this point, but she is a part of this werewolf hunting family. They have been led to believe that werewolves are just these terrible creatures that need to be eradicated from the world. And so there is this guy who is a werewolf that falls in love with our main character. He constantly visits her at the convenience store that she works at. Basically, she only agrees to go on a date with him when she realizes that he's a werewolf. And so on their first date, she like literally tries to kill him. Like, how iconic is that? I also loved being in the mind of Luke, who is the werewolf character, because he clearly doesn't really know how to be a human. And so it's kind of funny seeing him try to live in a human society and trying to pass off as human. The next series I want to talk about is the Night Huntress series by Janine Frost. So this is another series that I've only read the first 2 books in, but I loved both of them so much that I am just obsessed with Janine Frost now. This series centers on our main characters, Cat and Bones. Cat is half vampire, half human, and in this world that's pretty unheard of, she's pretty much the only being of her kind. And then we have Bones, who is a full-blooded vampire. So basically the two of them discover that they have a common enemy, which are evil vampires, essentially. So the two of them decide to join forces, and of course there's a romance that ensues between the two of them. I adore Bones so much. I mean, he's pretty much Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, he looks a lot like him. He also has a Cockney accent. His personality is a lot like Spike. However, he's not as like evil as Spike is, obviously, because Bones is trying to take down the evil vampires. Yeah, the romance between Cat and Bones is like one of the most swoon-worthy things ever. It's just so epic. So yeah, I cannot wait to continue on with this series. Okay, so that's it for my favorite paranormal romance series and my recommendations. So I thought I would go into my TBR now. These are the books in the series that I am really interested in checking out in the very near future. So the first series that I really want to get to is Wolf Song. I think the series is called Green Creek. This is by TJ Klune. So I have read 2 books by TJ Klune at this point, both The House on the Cerulean Sea and The Extraordinaries. I adored them so much that at this point I just trust TJ Klune with my heart and soul. So I decided to go into this series pretty blind. I really don't know what this is about. All I can tell you is that it is a series of male-male romances that are werewolf romances. Yeah, really excited about it. I know that there are 4 books in this series. Also, I know that this first book, Wolf Song, was, I think, Jess from Peace Love Books' absolute favorite romance of 2019. So I am just so pumped to get to this one. I'm gonna bring up Alona Andrews again because I am so excited to get to their Kate Daniels series. Yes, that's what it's called. So the premise just sounds fantastic. It's basically there has been a magic apocalypse. They pushed the technological progress so far, and now magic returned with a vengeance. It comes in waves without warning and vanishes as suddenly as it appears. When magic is up, planes drop out of the sky, cars stall, electricity dies. But when magic is down, guns work and spells fail. This also takes place in Atlanta. I'm already sold. This sounds absolutely incredible. I think there's at least 10 books in this series, so yeah, cannot wait to get to this one. Next series and author that I want to mention is Nalini Singh. This is the Psy Changeling series. The first book is called Slave to Sensation. I'm just going to read a bit of the synopsis because I'm not really sure what this is about. So it says, in a world that denies emotions, where the ruling Psy punish any sign of desire, Sasha Duncan must conceal the feelings that brand her as flawed. To reveal them would be to sentence herself to the horror of rehabilitation, the complete psychic erasure of everything she ever was. And then it says, both human and animal, Lucas Hunter is a changeling hungry for the very sensations the Psy disdain. After centuries of uneasy coexistence, these 2 races are now on the verge of war over the brutal murders of several changeling women. This sounds very interesting. As you can tell, I don't know much about this series, but Nalini Singh is an author that I have heard nothing but phenomenal things about, and I know that she has written quite a few paranormal romance series. So yeah, really looking forward to this one. Next up, we have the Immortals After Dark series by Cressley Cole. This is essentially a vampire paranormal romance series that has a lot of books in it as well. I think there's at least like 10 to 12 books. I don't know anything else about this series other than that. I've heard really good things about Cressley Cole in general. Then we have the Fever series by Karen Marie Moning. The first book in this series is Dark Fever. I believe there's at least like, oh, there's a lot of books in this series. Okay. This is a series that I've heard quite a few booktubers talk about. Let's see, it says, my name is Michaela, Mac for short. I am someone who sees the Fae, a fact I accepted only recently and very reluctantly. So basically the walls between man and Fae came down and Michaela's sister was murdered. And so to find answers, Michaela goes to Ireland. Oh, and it says Mac is soon faced with an even greater challenge, staying alive long enough to master a power she had no idea she possessed, a gift that allows her to see beyond the world of man into the dangerous realm of the Fae. All right, and then a couple of other series that I want to quickly mention. There's the Love at Stake series. This one is by Carolyn Sparks. This just sounds like your average vampire romance series. That sounds like fun. Also, I want to mention the Stay a Spell series by Juliet Cross. This one sounds like it centers around a bunch of different kinds of paranormal creatures. I think the first book is about like a werewolf romance, and there's a couple of other books also out that I think might center around witches. I'm not really sure, but I've heard really great things about both Juliet Cross and this series in particular. Then we have Janine Frost. I want to bring her up again because she has written a lot of spin-off books to the Night Huntress series, which I mentioned earlier. There is the Night Prince series, which I think centers around Vlad the Impaler or a Vlad the Impaler-like character. And then there is also the Night Huntress World series. So yeah, I definitely plan on reading like her entire backlist because I am already obsessed with her after just reading 2 of the Night Huntress books. So yeah, that is going to be it for this paranormal romance video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. I would love it if you would leave a comment below with your paranormal romance recommendations. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you in advance if you do. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!